Afternoon. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session for Wednesday, August 11th, 2021. It is 2:04 p.m. My name is Ty Mentor, Chair of the Board. Seated in the boardroom is the Vice Chair, Commissioner Gary Edwards, who will lead today's meeting, Commissioner Carolina Mejia, and various members of our Agricultural Advisory Committee that we'll let the committee introduce. The public can follow along through the county's YouTube channel. This is being live streamed. The topic today is the Agricultural Advisory Committee annual briefing. We have slated an hour until 3 p.m. And with that opening, I'm going to pass the baton to the Vice Chair, Commissioner Edwards, to kind of lead things through. I understand we're going to have a presentation from the Agricultural Advisory Committee, and I look forward to seeing that. Thank you.
Well, I think what I'm going to do is pass the baton over to the county manager just for a minute, make sure we cover all our bases, and then we'll pass it over to Richard McNamara, the chair of the committee.
Sounds good, sir. Thank you. Maybe we can go around the table and introduce ourselves, what role you play in the committee. And then we go onto the Zoom screen. We have a couple of guests as well. And then we'll hand it over to Mr. McNamara. Will that work? Sir?
Well, thank you. Jed Haney, non-farmer member.
Kevin Jensen, farmer member, South Thurston County.
Joe Hanna, farmer member, vice chair, East Olympia.
Jaquetta McClure, GG, non-farmer member, Tenino, also the scribe.
Richard Mankamar, chair.
Robert McIntosh, farmer member, McIntosh Tree Farm.
Oh, Nicole Ross, admin.
County staff? Yeah. And on the screen, we have Stephen.
Yes, Stephen Bramwell, WSU Thurston County Extension ex officio member on the Thurston County Ag Advisory Committee.
Sarah?
Hello, everyone. Sarah Moorhead, Thurston Conservation District Executive Director, also an ex officio member on the committee.
And also join us on the Zoom screen, we have the Assistant County Manager, Robin Campbell, for the record. So, Mr. McNamara, ready?
You're up, sir.
You want to share your screen? Let's get the PowerPoint going. Okay, perfect.
You want to bring up the agenda? Well, thank you all for being here today. The goal is for an informative and motivational briefing, for there are major things happening not only in agriculture, but many areas of our daily life. Today, we're going to learn a little about the history of the Ag Committee, being one of the older advisory committees of Thurston County, potentially making history as the only recent briefing that we know of. Did we ever have a briefing, Robert?
Not during my tenure.
So we're not sure we ever had one. But anyway, we're here today. We hope it goes well and invite us back next year. We're going to examine some very difficult issues we are facing today as farmers and citizens, what we may do about it, if anything. In many ways, this actually is an emergency briefing, as we will see. On Monday, the United Nations just called a code red for humanity. As you'll notice, this is a picture of the drought map of North America. Next one is the drought map of the United States. You can see what's happening in the West. Next is the drought map of Washington State. And then drilling down below that is Thurston County. Actually, of all the problems we're having in the West, Thurston County is actually doing a little better than most of them. You can see the chart right below there. It talks about we're in a moderate drought, where most of the other states is abnormal or more. Governor Inslee has declared a statewide drought emergency on July 14th. And you see in this chart, the farm loss, the land loss, it was a 19% loss since 2012. And the one right below that, you'll notice that most of the farms in our area are family farms. That's at 97 figure at the bottom. And since you all have copies of these, I'm not going to dwell a whole lot on it. And with some of these charts you've seen before, but it's nice to keep this for your future reference. Here's a snapshot of the farmland in the Thurston region. There was 1,336 farms when this was originally taken, but I think we're down to about 1,200 now. You can see the changes in acres. The number of farmland acres in Thurston County lost to development since 2000 is 6,500 acres. There was some good news. There was some effort to conserve over 2,300 acres through the conservation of some of the trusts in the county that are really working hard. And then this is the change in number of farms, 2019 to 2020. A lot of farms got lost in the United States. And you can look at Washington State, looks like we're right up there with the rest of them. That was from the American Farmland Trust. Okay, now we're into some shocking numbers behind Lake Mead, the drought crisis. And you wonder why we're going to talk about Lake Mead in California in this whole presentation. It's how important a role they play in our county. As you know, a lot of our food from the West Coast comes from California and also shipped throughout the country. But the United States' largest reservoir is draining rapidly. That's Lake Mead. Plagued by extreme drought and increasing demand for water, Lake Mead on Wednesday registered its lowest level on record since the reservoir was filled in the 1930s. Lake Mead, a Colorado River reservoir just east of Las Vegas on the Nevada-Arizona border, is poised to become the focal point of one of the country's most significant climate crises, water shortages in the West. 25 million people rely on Lake Mead water, and more will be affected in the coming years and decades by the Colorado River shortage alone, with some being forced to make painful water cuts. It's not a threat on the horizon, it's here now. And it's all but certain to be declared an emergency later this year. Among the hardest hit in the first round of water cuts will be agricultural communities. You can kind of watch the theme throughout this whole presentation. This is how the farmers get the short end of the water stick on this deal, particularly those in central Arizona from that water source. With less water, farmers say they will be forced to fallow land and probably go out of business. Once again, is it the bureaucracy doing the wrong thing at the wrong time? John Fleck, director of the Water Resource Program at the University of New Mexico, said, "This rapid decline scares me," said Fleck. "It's dropping so fast that it may be overreaching our ability to cope with the problem. I did not anticipate the bottom to drop this quickly, and we're only talking about Lake Mead. Hoover Dam generation is down 25% due to low water. If the dam loses another 175 feet of water will no longer flow through the Hoover Dam. 90% of Las Vegas water comes from Lake Mead. Lake Orville, one of California's largest reservoirs, a hydroelectric power plant that can serve up to 800,000 homes, has been taken offline as extreme drought conditions continue to impact the state. This is the first time the power plant has been taken offline due to drought." As you can see from this slide up there now, California State Water Resource Control Board votes to end water diversions for over 5,700 farmers. The state is draining reservoirs largely for environmental use rather than urban or agricultural use. Here you can see that they're identifying now some dead zones off the coast of Oregon and Washington at low oxygen levels. Oregon now has a hypoxia season, just like a wildfire season. You see food inflation as you've been shopping lately. Food prices are going up. And what will become of the fallow farmland? Not all farmland in the San Joaquin Valley will survive. Estimates are that the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act will force between 500,000 and 1 million acres of farmland out of production to save groundwater. 1 million acres fallowed equal 1.9 billion in yearly crop losses. And that food will not come into Washington State. Assembly Bill 252 would create a land repurposing program under the Department of Conservation to provide grants for local groundwater agencies to incentivize farmers to take land out of production. As of January, Westlands Water District has converted 7,700 acres of irrigated agriculture into solar development. Ranchers sell off cattle, and farmers idle hundreds of thousands of acres as America's drought emergency escalates in North Dakota. Here's a quote from Michael Snyder, author of Lost Prophecies of the Future of America. Quote, "In my entire lifetime, this is the worst drought condition has ever been in the west of the country. During the past 20 years, the amount of territory in the west considered to be suffering from exceptional drought has never gone higher than 11% until now. Today, that number is sitting at 27%. The term mega drought is being thrown around a lot these days to describe what is happening, but this is just a drought. But this isn't just a drought. This is a true national emergency, and it is really starting to affect our food supply. Just look at what's happening in North Dakota. The vast majority of the state is either in the worst level of drought or the second worst level of drought, and ranchers are auctioning off their cattle by the thousands. He says, so I encourage everyone to stock up while they can. As I have said so many times, we really struggle to feed everyone in the world during the best years. And 2021 is definitely not one of the best years. Global food supplies are getting tighter and tighter, and this definitely has enormous implications for our future," end quote. If y'all remember the toilet paper crisis, what if that would happen to food? This is a real issue I think we need to think about. The pandemic planted the seeds for food inflation. A lot of food is already up 40% or more or not available. As you know, gas is up 40%. Alder Lake, just east of here near Elby, which generates electricity for Tacoma Power, normally has let a bunch of its water out by now in anticipation of the winter rain and the snowpack on Mount Rainier. The reservoir is still full, and the swimming area is functional. What are they anticipating? And I sincerely hope they're anticipating holding that water in case they don't get the rain they need. Can you go back? No.
We can't see very well.
Can't go
Yes.
back.
Could you guys see something on that one photograph?
No, it's a video.
Oh, okay.
I'll start the video when we get there.
We're almost there. I thought maybe I was something going wrong with my eyes here. I didn't get much detail out of that one.
Quick eye exam.
Code Red. On Monday, the United Nations just called a code red for humanity. The world is likely to cross dire climate change threshold soon. Earth is getting so hot that temperature in about a decade will probably blow past a level of warming that world leaders have sought to prevent, according to a report released Monday, that's this Monday, that the United Nations called a code red for humanity. Okay, now we're good. Thurston County has lost the most farmland. And all of you have seen this chart, not particularly this chart, but this data before, and it's in nice bar form here for us to see today. And Thurston County applies zoning protection to only 26% of farmland compared to 50% or more in other counties. So what does that farmland loss look like? Now we'll see that blank. Okay, this is a view looking south on Hannes Road. We're now scrolling, or we're now turning to the right. If you can pause there a minute. This is 123rd going directly west. What you're looking at here is about a 500 to 600 acre farm in this whole spread. And you'll notice the houses being built here. If you look at those, that's not affordable housing.
Mega mansions.
Okay, go ahead. And watch to the top right. Okay, pause there a minute, please. Can you pause there? If you look way up in the back there, those houses are being built right now. Today, they're up there working. This is the original farm you see down below. They're not farming anymore, they haven't for years. They do a little hay every now and then. Okay, go ahead. So this is part of that farm. As you come around and look east now, this is another one of the hay fields right there on that farm. You can see they got another 10, 15 houses in there, and those are fairly new within the last 1 to 2 years. Now we're gonna transition to a site on Vale Road that was just logged. This is Vale Road running north and south here. This is a big farm that was farmed. There's no one in that buildings now. This whole section here was just logged. This is it's about 400 acres here. You see how far back it goes there? Can you go to the next one, please?
Can
This is
you pause
the
for a second? Do you have the chance to share the screen and the Zoom? It's not coming through on the Zoom, the PowerPoint. So go back to the Zoom and share the screen. Robert, can you see it?
I can see it now with the, all the toolbars and stuff, but I can see the slides.
Okay, great, thank you. You can-
There we go. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you for the note.
So the community that was watching, they couldn't see that video that just played?
No, but everybody was seeing on the community, Commissioner Menzer and those who are joining via Zoom, they couldn't see the PowerPoint. Now they can.
So we missed the video.
Yeah, I was following along on the slide, on the written slides, but I couldn't see the video.
Maybe we can go
Can
back
you
to
show it again? That'd be great.
Sure. I can narrate who had those farms over the last 150 years. There you go.
And the second one on Vale was farmed up until 6 months ago.
Yeah.
When it sold.
Yeah, that's all brand new, that cutting.
What's interesting, to go back and see it again, when you get to the one on Vale Road, rumor has it that's gonna be a housing development.
I don't know that we've had anything in yet, but that property was actually donated to a university with the intent that it was gonna be protected property. And as soon as the folks that passed on that donated it, then it was sold for revenue for the university.
Wow.
So, just to give you an idea. Sometimes what you intend to do with your place, you know, isn't the way it always turns out. And those are all 5-acre pieces on the right, so.
Okay, this is the chart of that we did with the Agriculture Advisory Committee. This took us, I think we worked on this for 4 to 6 months. And it was quite fascinating. The survey, of course, is quite in-depth. You can find it on the Thurston County website. I think it's under community planning. But I took 2 of the charts out of here to address some of the issues here. And you talk about what do prospective farmers need to start farming? Well, the first problem they have is land. By the way, the land we just saw, the aerial view, the 400 acres, I think it's sold for $2.5 million or something like that. Who's gonna be able to afford to buy that to farm? So anyway, you see, the biggest problem, and this survey I thought was quite accurate because we really worked on it. I know I talked to a lot of people and got to take the survey. But access to land is a big problem, and financial assistance to farm it once you're there. And then they need people to help teach them how to farm. So that's some of the big problems that we have. We're just gonna touch this briefly. Like I say, you can find this on the county website. And on the next chart, some of the things that I get questions to when I go to different meetings, I'm on the Sentinel Landscape Planning and Implementing Committee, and I get a lot of questions from federal agents, the state, And they always ask me, since I'm the only farmer there, they say, Richard, what are some of the biggest problems you're having? And there it is, the top chart. Property tax relief. We were just discussing our little farm just a few days ago as we were coming in hot, dirty, and sweaty, saying, do we really want to do this next year? I mean, our little farm does not make enough money to pay its taxes, and our taxes are not low. So tax relief, fee relief. Another farmer I know wanted to put some Christmas trees on his farm, and he come to the county to ask him something, and they wanted to charge him $4,000. And he calls me up and says, Richard, what's this deal? I said, I don't know what they're trying to do. Some kind of fee for something. So there's not much of an incentive to either want to continue doing your farming or expand or whatever. So there's your top two, right off the survey. I didn't say this, the survey said it. Fee relief. And there again, they're talking about they need more experienced opportunity. They need older farmers to teach the younger farmers. That's real simple. Support to Marcus. So as you get a chance, review that chart. It's quite awesome.
Could you tell us, Richard, just a little bit about the survey and how that went about?
Well, what would you like to know?
Just how it was conducted.
Well, Jennifer Davis, great gal, works for the county.
Yep.
As she came to the Ag Committee meeting month after month and helped guide us through what they needed to know, we helped. We actually gave questions for her to put in that survey because, you know, you can go so far when you're not a farmer, but then when you got to get into the farmers actually asking those questions. What do I need to know for the county to understand how we're going to keep farmers going? So we did. It was quite a lot of work. It was about 6 months. Over about 6 months we worked on this. I know they came back, they wanted to do the survey real quick. They wanted to have it out like 4 weeks. And I said, 4 weeks is too short. I said, you go 2 months. We only meet once a month. So it takes us time to contact all the people we know, get our email lists notified. So they did. And I thought it was very well put together. There was a lot of help from other people outside the community. I know Loretta was there, and Marilyn is back east now. So there was a lot of help putting that survey together. And we thought it was quite in-depth, and they did a real good job. So now you got something to work with. I mean, you got some facts and figures here that you can work with.
Thank you.
And I believe there were over 400 respondents directly from the community, which spread from farmers and also businesses that were affected by the local farming community, like markets, So I think it was a pretty thorough survey.
Yeah, I was pleased. I've been involved in other surveys, and this one was one of the better ones. So what we're going to look at now is farming challenges, and today we have one of our committee members here, Kevin Jensen, and he's going to talk about his challenges down at Riverbend Ranch.
So before I get started, two things that I quickly jotted down during Richard's talk from a farmer standpoint and all those facts and figures and photos. One, the water wars are coming to Washington. They're already here in Eastern Washington. They're coming to Western Washington. We will be doing what the rest of the Western U.S. is doing, and within probably the next decade to 2 decades, we will be fighting over water, low reservoirs. That's coming. So I think people really need to see what's going on south and east of us and take note and get ready for it and prepare for it. The second thing that I see is once the water's gone, people are going to be displaced. Where are they going to go? They're going to go where there's water. We still have water. So not only are we under pressure currently, but if Lake Mead and these rest of these big reservoirs that nobody thought would ever dry up start drying up, if you don't have water, you can't live. You're going to move. Where are you going to go? So it's going to just add to the pressure on ag land that is currently under production here, fighting for that same water. So those are the two big things that I see coming, and that I think it doesn't matter if you're a farmer or not, that it should be kind of in the back of everyone's head. How am I going to prepare? So obviously those are things that I'm looking at as well, but you know, Richard asked me to talk about some of the things affecting our current farm. So I guess about me, I'm 4th generation cattle farmer in Thurston County. My girls are 5th. So we started out in the Yelm area, and then I currently run our ranch that's in Tenino. So both ranches are still under same management within the family, just different part of the tree. So, so on our ranch in Tenino, we have Christmas trees, we have beef cattle, cow-calf production, we raise grass-fed beef, we raise pork, we have a wedding venue, we sell hay, and then we raise commercial timber. Pretty much anything I can get my sticky fingers on is what I'm dabbling in. And honestly, at the end of the day, we're just scratching to pay our property taxes. You know, there are open space incentives as far as tax relief on the ground, but we have a lot of buildings on our place and there's no relief on those. So, you know, we are, just like Richard said, suffering under these extreme property taxes. And honestly, that's our number one thing that is affecting the bottom line. The second thing that I see right now that kind of jumped up to number 2 is what's gonna happen this winter with COVID again. Right now we're running weddings. We were shut down completely last year. Had 10 weddings that had been planned for years, all of a sudden pulled the rug out from under them. So not only was it stressful on us, my wife who runs it, but the people that had spent years planning their perfect day. So, you know, we're currently doing weddings now. We're probably okay for this season. What's next season look like? I'm more worried about our Christmas tree farm. We do a lot of agritourism. We have a U-cut tree farm. It's a big part of our you know, bottom line within the structure of the farm. So we didn't open the U-cut last year. There was too many unknowns, and I don't know that we could go another year without opening. So we're a little nervous about what COVID stuff is going to look like for this winter. So I think that's our.
How about the drought on your Christmas trees?
Yeah, so it's bad. Where I was out yesterday walking the tree field, and I planted about 4,500 Christmas trees in January, and my best estimate right now is half of those are dead. So it costs $1 a tree to get it in the ground, just to get it in the ground. And then it's about $1 a tree every year for maintenance. So now that dead tree you have to replant next year, so you lose a year, and it costs another $1 a tree, which doesn't sound like much, but you start talking thousands of trees. It doesn't take long to add up. So it's not looking good. And the trees that are older, you know, that can take on more of the drought, a lot of them got burnt in that June heat wave on the west side of the tree. Yeah, and so when you're selling a tree 100% based off aesthetic view with a big burnt side to it, it's not very appealing. So it's going to take them a couple years to come out of it. So, and the biggest issue was it was early. The new growth pops out in May and June, and it was still tender when that 110 degrees hit. So when it hits this week, they can tolerate it because they're hardened off and they won't get that big damage. But yeah, we're seeing some serious issues on the Christmas trees. So, and I don't have irrigation, you know, I don't have irrigation on the Christmas trees, so we're looking at our options right now on how to, but again, water's everything. So if we can find a way to get water to them. I rigged up a water truck with a side cannon, and that's what I was doing yesterday. I was just going along where the babies were that are still alive, and I was just splashing a little water over them, just, I don't know, something. But yeah, it's tough. The third issue, another big issue for us, is local slaughter capacity. Joe's going to talk about that today. Everyone's probably heard about that for quite a while. We feel it every day, every month, every year. Butcher shops are not new butcher shops are not coming online. More people are, so there's kind of this, you know, butcher shops as they retire out of business, nobody's coming in and taking it over. Like our main shop just closed last year in Centralia that we used. So we're hauling out to Tacoma, we're hauling down to Kelso, we're having to go all over the place trying to find a slaughter facility to get the meat processed, so. You know, we definitely need more slaughter capacity in Thurston County. However that can come, that would be great. Again, hotter, drier summers. You know, 2015, I think, kind of opened everybody's eyes and was like, whoa, this isn't good. And it really, you know, it's been on and off since then, but you know, not to get political, but we're seeing changes within the prairies, within, you know, the growth of Christmas trees and all this stuff. So it's tough. So I think that going forward, there's still a lot of potential for running cattle on the prairies in Thurston County. The prairies need cattle. The critters on the prairies need cattle. The gophers need cattle. The butterfly, the frog, they all need cattle. Not just cattle, livestock. It has to be managed in such a way that everything can coexist. Rotational grazing, rest season. It's going to become more challenging though as we get these long dry stretches, 60 plus days, these prairies aren't recovering. And that's gonna be hard on the forbs for the gophers and the cattle feed. So looking forward, there's going to need to be some changes on the way people are grazing the prairies. So I think that's something that people need to have in the back of their heads. Yeah, but on the flip side, things are great. Yeah, we're blessed to be born into what we have. My kids are 2 girls, 3 and 5. They love the farm. So I'm just doing everything I can to improve the farm for them. So I want them to run it. And I'm sure they'll be battling Mother Nature when they come time to make decisions, so. Yeah.
Mother Nature probably wouldn't be so bad if you didn't have the government to battle along with it, huh?
Yeah. No truer words were ever spoken. Another battle he's got going, you see this chart up there with the red circle on it? They're gonna put a housing development right across the street from you, aren't they?
Yeah, so our place, you can see it on there, Riverbend Properties LLC. This is the it'd be the northeast corner of the property. So where it's circled there, that's all, they're actually developing that right now. But a lot of that's logged and they're probably gonna start building houses this summer. That's been in the works for quite a while. I came in and testified against it when it was first started back in 15 or 16, I think. But anyway, yeah, they're building, I think, 12 or 15 homes. So historically, we've been pretty insulated out in our area. There'll be a new house here and there, but we don't really have developments. So and now all of a sudden we have this one coming on the north side, and then the Yanis property to the east there, where all that timber is all gone. They logged all that. And now there's discussion where the Yanis family is going to sell and potential development there. So now it's kind of coming on all sides of this. So yeah, it's like Richard said, I mean, any one of us can drive out of Tumwater, go any direction, out of Olympia, go any direction, or out of Lacey, out of any direction. And you can see today farm ground going under development. Today, doesn't matter what direction you go. It's just, I don't know what the stats are now, but I think that it's worse, a lot worse than what the 12 to 16 is. I think we're losing more farm ground than anybody can even fathom right now.
That's good. And you gotta remember the figures that we looked at earlier, those are like 5, 6 years old. So what's happened in the meantime? The aerial view we saw was just recently, and it's happening. I just heard of another one today. All done, Kevin?
Yeah, I think so.
I do maybe just want to put in a brief good word for government from a tree farmer's perspective. The assessor's current use tax program for timberland is a government program. And it's a government program that saved our tree farm, which is also a 5th generation tree farm. And we reached a point in the late 60s where our taxes were doubling every year. And then the state put in the timber open space program, which cut our taxes to the point where tree farming could remain viable. And it may not be working so well for farming, but it's working beautifully for tree farming because the way the program is set up, we pay property taxes at a low rate, but we pay forest excise tax when we cut our trees. I think it's now 6.6% of what we get for the trees. But we don't have to pay the tax until we've earned some money to pay the tax. So to me, it's entirely reasonable that government can do things that help farmers.
And should you want to develop that, you have to pay 7 years back taxes at the current rate, right?
Right, with interest.
With interest, right?
But we do not want to develop it.
Sure. I think maybe what Kevin's referring to is the building square footage. They don't have that same benefit. They should have though, because it's farm activity, but they're paying
Right.
a higher rate for those buildings.
Yeah. But I would agree, if we didn't have that tax break on the land, we wouldn't be in business.
You've got yours probably, open space, right?
Yeah, both, and we have long-term timber.
Yeah.
The timber works and stuff, yeah.
So just real quick before,
May I also make a note really quick?
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. But during our last assessment, Robert, of the open space program, it was a 90% tile of what the county had done for the open space program for current applicable space. So there is, inside of our county government with our own programs, though our programs could use some expansion, et cetera, it seems that our programs seem to be working well with it was like 94%, I believe, that had applicable properties that had been applied to our open space program. So I would say that's a nod to our county working well on that program.
And that's what we're here for today, is see what we can do. As the Ag Advisory Committee, and with farmers on here who have the experience, like generations, we do have a pretty good idea of what would work. I wish that program was available to me, Robert. It would help me a lot.
Right.
So we gotta move on, we're gonna run out of time
Go
here.
ahead.
Yeah, time check, 17 minutes.
Yeah, so we got.
Rob, Richard, could you leave us a few minutes? We want to make sure that commissioners have time for questions.
Sure, we'll try and speed it up, maybe I'll speed mine up and Joe can speed his up. This is my little farm out in Yelm. This is our farm stand. We have 2 refrigerators, and we put our produce in one, our eggs in the other. We sell chicken eggs, duck eggs, and all the produce we can grow in the greenhouse. And outside, we have outside areas that we grow. If you flip the picture over there to the next one, this is a big farm across the street from us. They grow sweet corn. That's the Shorno farm, and they have to water. We're watering every day. They're watering every day. They're just about ready to pick their corn. You see a picture of the chickens and the ducks, little pond. This is all free range. I want to show you what a greenhouse we put in. The only relief we got in this whole package deal was we got a greenhouse that the NRCS helped to pay for. They didn't pay for it all. We put in geothermal heating in this greenhouse. You'll see there the picture on the left is an 8-foot level. We put the drain core in there to help collect this, runs air through there. The next picture is a 4-foot level. We put 2 levels of this in, then we covered it up. The bottom left picture, you see the tubes coming up from the geothermal. This runs the whole length of the greenhouse, which is 100 feet. And what you do, you blow hot air down in there in the summer, and you bring that hot air back out in the winter to help keep your greenhouse from freezing, but it does not heat it. It just would keep something from freezing. There's a picture of the greenhouse there. There's a nice little sign there, no farms, no food, no future, from the American Farmland Trust. And the next slide, you'll see some of the predators and the things we have to put up with. And I mean, this is an ongoing battle. My wife had just complained the other day that the voles got in one of our front pasture fields there where we grow potatoes and carrots and stuff. They just went down through there and cut everything off. So those are some of the things that we have to deal with. And moving on, we're going to go and let Joe talk about the meat processing.
Sure. To start, I'd like to jump back at Kevin, and he won't say it, and most of your farmers aren't going to say the words, but the regenerative agriculture thing, that the board has used that term many times. What Kevin's doing is all of it's part of the process of regenerative agriculture. What most of the farmers on the committee, what most of the farmers in the county are doing, you're hearing how tough it is as it is. If we weren't practicing regenerative agriculture, we wouldn't be able to farm. It just becomes totally financially impractical. So on the meat processing, the first slide there is an artist rendering of the complete facility that can process 50 head per week if they're being held for 14 days of cooling or dry aging. The number of head is strictly limited by the cooler space. As you can see from the box on the lower left, Friesla provides full services from initial site visit and planning to installing the system and software for state-of-the-art processing and tracking of each animal entering the facility. This is the PS1 system that's displayed. The cost of the PS1 is in the ballpark of 1.9 million, and adding a modular such as an additional cooler would cost in the ballpark of $250,000. The turnaround time, because that's a question I've been asked, from the time it's ordered is about 6 to 8 months. I asked if that was a real number when I had a meeting with this company, and they said absolutely, even with the supply chain problems, that's what their turnaround currently is. To add a cooler in the future, if we were to build, or if an entity was to build this, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks order time, and the actual install time is only 3 to 5 days. Because it is a modular facility and design, it's pre-made with the idea that you would add on to it. Additional costs related to the potential of one of these would include things like corral system, a concrete pad for the entire facility to sit on, the electrical, water, and sewer to the facility. Next slide, please. Here you see some actual pictures from inside one of their existing facilities. Notice the stainless steel and easily clean facility to keep the facility contamination free. The facility comes ready to operate from day one. But Friesla does offer a complete training program as part of the package. One issue we've heard being voiced out of Tenino is related to water usage. According to Friesla, the average use is about 125 gallons per head processed. This compares to the average in your regular brick and mortar facility of about 450 gallons per head that gets processed. So substantially less, a substantial conservation of water. Next slide, please. Again, this is a rendering of the PS1 and PS2 models. You'll note that the PS2, the only real difference is they've increased the space, hanging space, drying areas, as well as an additional knock and bleed room and processing for the butcher. So this is something the Ag Committee's been looking at for well over a year. We've heard the demand. Kevin mentioned the lack of local processing. The thing that sets this aside is this would be a USDA facility. Kevin talks about hauling all over Western Washington to get meat processed. I'm doing the same thing. That's under the custom exempt rules, the state's custom exempt rules, which basically, well, I'll come back to that. So funding for this, currently the Washington Conservation Commission has a $3.6 million line item budget adjustment to fund 2 USDA mobile slaughter trucks. We think they would be the first source of funding for whatever entity requests the grant from them. And I think this would probably rate pretty high because they're not gonna just get a truck that gets parked somewhere to be the equivalent to the knock and bleed room. But a full USDA processing facility. The live animal comes into the facility and goes on the back end and goes out the front side as boxed meat, packaged individual cut meat. There's also potential funds available from USDA, farm conservancies, and finally you. The last I've heard, and I would apologize that I haven't attended the meeting until yesterday for a couple of weeks, you're still holding about $1 million of funds related to the latest COVID relief package, specifically that was suggested by staff for agriculture. I've spoken to staff on the limited uses of those funds, and I understand that it's very limited, but there are some things that could be covered within the potential of building this type of facility in our county. Huh? Yep. Every dollar is going to count. Finally, I would say I'd address that you probably thought of what you probably thought of first, and that's why do we need a USDA facility in Thurston County? And you'll be surprised by this answer. We don't. We need one in this region. And the vision the committee has related to this is that it's not just going to be used by Thurston County farmers. It would be used by all surrounding counties, everything in the region. I've actually spoken to a meat distribution company in Seattle that currently buys directly from local producers, but they're having to transport the animals across the mountains to Moses Lake to get processed and then turn around and haul them back to Seattle to the restaurants that they supply. The lack of a consistently available, reasonably priced USDA facility has limited many of our local farmers and ranchers from producing more product that they can sell at a higher price. Because as I said, we're currently selling under custom exempt, which means technically we're selling a share of the live animal as it stands in the field. Typically that's a quarter, a half, or a whole animal. In my operation, which is a high-end product producing Wagyu, 100% Wagyu, I sell a carcass for $6,000. And then the customer pays the cut and wrap to the butcher. That works out to about $10 to $11 per pound for actually meat in the freezer. If I could break that down and sell it by individual cuts, which is a everyday request, if I could sell it as individual cuts, that same $6,000 carcass becomes worth at least $9,000. The average price of a USDA 100% Wagyu ribeye tomahawk steak is in the ballpark of $50 to $60 per pound. And if you really want to know what you pay for that same steak in a Seattle area steakhouse, you can ask me after the meeting because actually it's embarrassing. So parceling out those individual cuts, which Kevin could do, I could do, anybody could do if we had access to a reasonably priced USDA facility, would just increase our ability to increase that bottom line. And I'll cut it off there because we're getting short.
Great, well, let's take a quick look at the future. What can we do? We gotta train the youth. We've gotta get the kids involved.
Next slide.
No, that, can you play that? FFA has 2 high schools that they teach agriculture. Both of them are located in cities.
At WB Saul High School of Agricultural Sciences, a comprehensive career and technical education school with a farm, we provide our students with academic and hands-on experiences in animal science, food science, horticulture, and natural resource management in preparation for careers and collegiate experiences post-graduation.
Our mission is to create student leadership that makes a difference in our world. Through diverse, hands-on STEM opportunities rooted in an urban setting.
Who knew Philly had horses, sheep, and cows on Henry Ave?
SAL students apply their knowledge and skills to address modern environmental and agricultural challenges.
like composting or reducing our plastic waste.
Like getting more female students and students of color into ag-related sciences.
With an eye towards post-secondary and career success, and through exciting experiences, hands-on activities, and down and dirty work.
SAL students drive the future by learning to do, doing to learn, and learning to serve.
And we have a lot of fun doing it.
We look forward to seeing you soon. For more information, visit our website.
The FAA has chapters all over the world. The two biggest chapters in the United States are located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Chicago, Illinois, and they have farms.
And I'd like to say that this past weekend, Saturday, was the 4-H FFA youth sale for animals. I'd like to thank Commissioner Edwards. I heard his name come up as an add-on for one of the animals that was sold. Being the fair was canceled this year, this is the only chance for those kids that raise those animals for the entire year to see the support collect some money on the animal that they've spent lots of money raising. So thank you, Commissioner.
4-H is a great program. It's run locally through WSU Extension and also is run throughout the country. Over 100 universities do that. So we're encouraging the county to support WSU Extension, support 4-H. You'll see a lot of our suggestions or recommendations at the end of the presentation, which we're going to run out of time on. Is this a video too? Okay, go on this slide. Let's take a quick look at the future. If you can't grow outside, where are you going to grow? You have to go inside. Big money is moving farming inside, indoors. Here is one particular experiment we did, a pilot project locally. This is aquaponics. It uses fish for the fertilizer. Grow both vertically, horizontally, and in media. Next slide. This is USDA is even into it. This is one from one of their publications. Arrow Farms. When I talk about big money, I mean big money. Arrow Farms just went public and they raised $1.2 billion to grow indoor. You can go next slide, please. Here's some of the things that they're doing. They went out for public funding and their public offering. They asked for $500 million. How many times do you get twice what you asked for?
Well, may I interject here? The point that Arrow Farms did is they centered themselves near food distribution centers. And as we have all these distribution centers in our county, what would we prefer to have? Ag distribution centers that support our food network, or distribution centers of the other like? And that's one of the main things that the CEO made in these most recent publications on their raising, is that they're in the urban centers and they specifically place their future farms in warehouses near distribution centers. So I think that's something for us to consider for long-term planning.
Yeah, we may not want to wait too long to consider that, the way it's going now. And
Let me ask you a quick question on this. Have you talked to any of the municipalities yet? Because they have those distribution centers mostly in the urban growth area, usually in the municipality. Have you talked with any of those folks?
As far as distributing food?
Yeah, just
Thurston
as portrayed, we don't have the outside facilities and we don't have the inside facilities, you might say. But some of the municipalities do. I just wonder, that's all.
No, not at this point. However, Thurston County does have a food hub now.
Yeah.
And one of our community members is the manager of that.
Right.
So that's coming online. It's been online about a year now, so that's great. And one other, in Europe and Asia, this is a big deal, growing inside. The European pension managers go big for indoor ag. Equilibrium closed a $1.1 billion deal, a CSE fund. You guys, we better stop right here.
Yeah.
Commissioners.
How'd you get Bill and Melinda to step in on that photo? All right.
A couple of minutes for questions.
Yeah, I tell you, Commissioner, do you have any particular questions at this point?
I do not.
But I think we're I think we're on your side, I guess.
That's-
Commissioner Menser, do you have something you want to say, sir?
Way too many questions for the 30 seconds I have,
Yes.
so.
Okay.
Well, yeah, this is not a 1 hour thing. We can't even get into it really.
Well,
in
you
an
did a
hour.
pretty good job.
But, a couple hours, if we could come back, or we can meet offline and chat just about the things that need to be done. But we appreciate.
Well, I know you folks aren't bashful, so, give us some suggestions and we'll see.
You have a whole bunch of them in
Yeah,
that
I
back
see
of
that.
that packet. And don't be
We
afraid to
got
ask.
several pages of them.
Yes.
And feel
So-
free to come to the meeting.
How does it fit in with what Tenino's doing down there?
As far as,
Their,
That's where we would hope the USDA facility would go. Their initial studies, everything we hear back, and Kevin was on that initial group, was that's the number one thing they identified as a need. I've been working with Sarah from the Conservation District because that's gonna be the best source to be when I referenced the entity that owns it. And that's one of the big sell points for getting somebody in to manage it. I've already had somebody approach me about managing it. Because when you don't have to meet that nut every month of a mortgage because you're leasing it at a reasonable cost from the district, that's similar to what the Pierce mobile slaughter truck is done. Pierce leases theirs for $1 a year. I don't think that's reasonable. That doesn't allow the district to even manage the contract. But for a reasonable amount, somebody coming in to manage a facility like that can keep prices that would probably be competitive with the custom exempt shops, but still be USDA because they're not having to meet that mortgage every month.
we are pressed, but could you give us, folks who really aren't up on everything, Wagyu? What is Wagyu? Do you massage the beef or what is it?
No, we don't. It is Japanese beef. The massage theory came out of the PBS documentary from the 70s that was selling the series. It's super high marbled. Kobe beef is a region, it comes from a region within Japan. A very limited number of full blood or 100% Wagyu were exported to the US and Australia in the 70s and 80s. Very limited, and then Japan put a stop to that, saying they're national treasures. So there's a limited number of full blood or 100% Wagyu animals in the US, but Australia is producing huge numbers of F1s. In fact, you can find Australian Wagyu in Walmart now. Of course, that's when it goes down the rail and they're grading it, they go Australia, Australia, Japan, Japan, Australia, US.
but don't be afraid to come to the committee, ask us questions. You can ask us during the meeting. You can send us emails. Thank you very much.
I have to go on.
Yeah, we have commissioners that have other appointments, so thank you very much for your presentation. And folks, I think we're done YouTubing, is that right?